Hello, and welcome everybody to our webinar today. My name is Rachel Fish. I've got my colleague Max Whiteley here. I would love to hear where you're all from. And yesterday we talked a little bit about the weather, Max. It was like -5 in some places, -28 in others. And then we had folks, dialing in from the Philippines and other warm, balmy locations. So yeah, I'd love to hear where you're dialing in from. And of course, we will try to get to all of your burning questions about Dext Expenses today. So, Max, if you wanted to go ahead and share your screen.
Perfect.
And I just want to make sure that the chat is open. Dave, can you just confirm that we have the chat open and everybody can chat with everybody? Awesome. Maybe we'll just hold on a couple minutes for more folks to join us then. Northern Colorado, awesome. Probably gorgeous in the mountains, Dan. Little snowy where you are. Christina from Alberta, wonderful. I'm also in Canada. I'm just west of Toronto. Katie's also in Toronto. We do have somebody from the Philippines here as well. Thank you so much, Josiane. A little snowy this morning for Dan. Awesome. So we actually have a very packed 45 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and get started. All of this, of course, is recorded so that we can share it with the rest of the Successful Bookkeeper community. We're just going to kick off with some introductions, talk about how Dext helps you get expenses done in a snap, and especially your clients, of course. Max is going to take us through a live demo, and of course, we'll give you a way to find out more information if you'd like that from us at the end. We're planning for about 45 minutes. We have a relatively small group, so feel free to ask questions. We want to make sure that you're getting everything out of this webinar that you possibly can. And we also, of course, have colleague Katie behind the scenes answering some questions as well. So happy to either answer behind the scenes or Max, if we've got questions that kind of apply to everybody, that would be awesome. So after this webinar then, the goal, of course, is to gain actionable insights to help you, your clients, and their teams manage expenses efficiently and hassle-free. And Dan, yes, if you were part of the expenses webinar that we did yesterday, we did one very similar or identical for all of those outside of the Successful Bookkeeper community. And then today we're doing it specifically for the Successful Bookkeeper community. So if you attended yesterday, then yes, it's going to be all the same content. Awesome. So let's just go into introductions. Again, my name is Rachel Fish. I'm the General Manager for Dext in North America. I also have my colleague Max Whiteley here, product domain expert, all the way from across the pond in the UK. Max, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Rachel. And yeah, thank you all for having me from across the pond. It's 5 p.m. here, so at the end of the working day, I've been roped into helping Rachel on this webinar, which is all good. I've been with Dext for around about 8 months now. Prior to that, I was an accountant in practice for 13 years. I was a Dext customer or a receipt bank customer for sort of 10 of those years. So my job effectively is to speak to accountants and bookkeepers and find out what they want from Dext as a product, how we can eliminate any pain points, and then sort of translate that to our techie guys in-house and our developers to help them build stuff to, yeah, eliminate some of those pain points for you guys. So yeah, that's me, Max Whiteley.
Absolutely. Awesome. So today we're going to talk about some of the common challenges, not only for your clients, but also for you in bookkeeping practice. So for your clients, they might be dealing with inconsistent processes for organizing and categorizing their expenses. They might be dealing with some challenges around multi-layer approval processes. And prior to us launching approvals, you actually, if you required this in your workflow, you needed a separate tool to do that. And so now that we've introduced approvals in September this past year, we can now actually do that right within your workflow in Dext. and also a lack of real-time visibility into things like spending and affecting your budget control. Cash is king, right? So if there's anything that we can do to ensure that both we and the client stays on top of their expenses, then it's going to be worth it for them. But what are some of the challenges that you feel in your practice between you and your team? Things like time-consuming reconciliation of client expenses, inconsistent expense data, right? You get it in different ways from different clients and different methods. So let's talk about having to kind of unify that. And also, it just gets tiring trying to keep up with all of the tools that you should be using. You get app fatigue. There's multiple tools that do the same thing. How do you figure out which ones actually manage everything the most efficiently? And Max, I just have to share this comment that Dan put in. So Dan was part of the webinar yesterday. He said to everyone here, this will be an amazing webinar. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving in or outside of the US. So I think we've got a bit of a customer testimonial from all the content that we delivered yesterday. But yeah, honestly, guys, packed with applicable information that you can take away starting today to improve some of those processes with your clients. So let's talk a little bit then, of course, about how Dext helps. So first of all, quick and easy data capture for all of your clients. And for those of you who may be familiar with the Receipt Bank name from way back in the day, this is something that we've always been known for, right? Is that capture. But I think what's been really fascinating over the last decade as Dext has continued to innovate is that the methods of capture, the way that we capture, what we capture has expanded dramatically. And so hopefully you'll see that in the session today. The most accurate data extraction on the market. We've got the most data points across your documents that are being extracted. And we've got the largest volume of transactions that are extracted on a regular basis. So our ability to then, train that machine learning, train that AI to make sure that we know exactly where things should be going moving forward, we've got the ability to do that. Easy approvals and management, which of course Max will go through, both approvals on costs and approvals on expense reports specifically, and of course syncing all of that with your client's accounting software. So our whole goal here at Dext is to free up your time for you and your clients so that you can spend time on what matters most. And what matters most is different for all of us. Whether that's adding more clients to your book, whether that's spending more time with family, whatever it is you want to be spending that time doing, Dext enables you to do that. So in today's session, as I mentioned, Max is going to be going through several of these elements, actually all of these elements in a demo environment. So we're going to talk about capturing expenses, creating employee expense claims, and we can even talk about the different ways that you can use expense claims. I know some, for example, use it for their credit card matching and reconciliation. So automated approvals, accounting integration, and additional tools that will continue to help you maximize your efficiencies as well. So Max, did you want to kick us off with recapping our expense features?
Perfect. Let's get into it. Okay. Let me just jump out of here and let's go straight into the product. We had thought about doing a slide deck, but we didn't want to have death by PowerPoint. So we thought, let's get straight into the product. So if there are any technical difficulties along the way, this is a raw sort of live demo. So just bear with me with that. But hopefully we won't have anything that goes wrong during this. So for those of you who haven't used Dext before, like Rachel mentioned a little bit earlier, Dext is effectively eliminating that main pain point for you as accountants and bookkeepers, which is getting your information off your clients. And we do that and we capture that data from your clients. And then once we have it, we process the information off it. So say, for example, you get a bill, we'll extract all of that information off it, the date, the supplier, the tax amount, anything like that. And we'll process it into your QuickBooks or Xero without you having to manually type it up. So for those of you who are sort of au fait and used to using Dext, what you'll see from when you were in the desktop solution, we have this add documents button where you can add your cost items into the solution. And from here, There is 4 methods that people would usually use. The first one is a sort of upload from your computer where you can select files from your desktop, or you can drag and drop files from another screen into here. We also have a connect to supplier, which is our invoice fetching solution. So if you do have a supplier who has an invoice portal, so let's take Amazon as an example. So every time Amazon have a bill ready for you to receive, you have to go into log into your Amazon account, click into that transaction, download the bill, and then manually upload it into Dext for us to start to process it. What you can do instead with Invoice Fetch is you can give Dext your login details for one of your suppliers. So for example, Amazon. So every time a bill gets dropped into your Amazon account, Dext will go in and grab it out for you, so you don't have to do that. We have made some improvements to our invoice fetching around some of our solutions, especially around Amazon and eBay. So have a little look around. If you have tried it in the past and it didn't quite work, maybe it's worth another shot now with that. We also have this extract by email, which is our probably our second most popular feature in how to get a document into Dext. And that is whenever you set up with Dext, you get a personalized email address. And when you receive a bill from a client, you can forward it in to that email address, and it will arrive in your cost inbox here, ready to be processed and published into your accounting software. But we can, go one step further with this email address. And here's a couple of tricks that I did in practice. So the first one is when I was onboarding my clients, I would say to them, there's 2 methods here. The first one is to set up an auto forwarding rule within their inbox. So within their Gmail, their Outlook, they can say, every time I receive an email from Rachel, automatically send it to Dext, because Rachel is my supplier and she's sending me a bill. The only thing with that is if Rachel then sends me a Christmas card, that Christmas card will arrive in Dext as well. And if you automate rubbish, you get automated rubbish. So for me, the best way was when I was onboarding my clients and I was managing their purchase ledger for them. I would write them an email myself and pass it to my client to send to their suppliers. And that email would say something like, hi, such and such. Hi, Rachel. We've got a new account system in place. As we know, you're a valued supplier of ours. We want to make sure you get paid on time. So going forward, could you CC this email address in to any emails going forward? That way, our client isn't effectively doing no bookkeeping. Their suppliers are sending the invoices to us, the accountant and bookkeeper, and we get to process that in real time. And it doesn't really get much better than that. So your clients will love you. You'll love your clients because you're getting that real-time information. Then finally, we have the Snap-on mobile solution at the bottom. So whether you're on Android, Apple, or any sort of smartphone, you can download the app, and the app functionality pretty much has the same functionality as the desktop solution. It really is an intuitive piece of software, and you can go around and snap receipts on the go. You can do all sorts of weird and wonderful things on there. So if you're entertaining a customer or you've bought some fuel on your travels, you can go ahead and take a picture of that, and it will go into your accounting software where we'll go and extract all that information for you, so you don't have to sit there wasting your weekends typing up all of your bookkeeping receipts and bills along the way. What you will have seen is this will have appeared for some of you guys. So we now have a Create Mileage solution, which is available in Canada. It's not available in the US just yet, but that's not to say we won't be doing so. And if it is in the sort of remit of our product team at the moment, and Rachel will probably be able to show some insight on this, but if you do want to push this up the product team's sort of radar and get them to build it out for the US as soon as possible, then we do want to hear from you. And we do have like a user voice solution within our platform where you can request a feature, and you can do that by coming in within your Dext solution here, going to resources there and selecting suggest a feature there, and you can go into there, suggest a feature, and the more people that talk about mileage for the US, then the quicker it will happen. But I'll just show you how it works currently for our Canadians. Okay, so before we go in and create a mileage claim, we're going to have to set a few things up. Jumping into business settings here on the left-hand side, we can see a new little car emoji has appeared there saying mileage. If we click into that, what you'll see is how we go about setting this up. So first of all, we have to set up our defaults for our mileage claims. We don't have to set up defaults, but every time we do a mileage claim, we'd have to manually go and put this information in. So this just skips that step by having the defaults in there. It's a bit like a supplier rule that you'd be used to using within Dext. So first of all, what unit? Is it kilometers or miles? We're going to go for kilometers in this situation. We have a default mile category, which links to your, your nominal codes, chart of accounts within QuickBooks or Xero. And we're going to select here travel and expenses. And then finally, we have the supplier. So I'm going to default this to a supplier I've created in QuickBooks called mileage. So that every expense that is for mileage goes to that mileage contact within our solution. Okay. Down here, what you'll see is we have the personal vehicle rates for Canada provided by the CRA within here. So we know how to calculate your mileage claim for you. All of your kilometers up to 5,000 kilometers will be charged at 70 cents. And then above 5,000 kilometers, we'll be charging that at 64 cents. And we also have included that additional territory rate if you're traveling in those regions at an additional 4 cents per kilometer within there. So you don't have to update these. Dext will do it for you, and they'll keep on top of this as time goes on. And in the future, we are going to have the ability for you to be able to put your own rates in here if you don't want to use the rates provided by the Canadian government. Okay, we've got all the defaults. We've had a little look at the rates that have been provided within here. And as you can see, you can select all the rates from the previous year. And then at the bottom here, we're going to set up our vehicles. So I'm going to go into here and into my vehicle list. From here, we can either add a vehicle or I can show you one that I've recently created. So I've got one here. It's Max's vehicle. I've put in here that it's my personal vehicle and it relates to me, Max, as a user within Dext. I can say whether it's a car or a van. And in here, I can put my license plate. So I've got Dext 123 within there. So I've set up my vehicle. Just need to do that once, or you can do it on behalf of your partners themselves. Okay. So we're then going to jump back into my costing box here. And I'm ready now to go ahead and create this mileage claim. I can go ahead, click Add Documents, and I'm going to go ahead there and select that Create Mileage. From here, I go ahead and select which of my vehicles I'm using. If you're an admin user, you'll be able to see everyone's vehicles. If you're a standard user, you'll just be able to see your own. And I've clicked my vehicle there. And what you'll see is this big yellow error message within here. And effectively what this says is that we know, at the moment we're at the end of November, and we work out these rates based on how many miles you've traveled since the 1st of January. So it's a pretty, there's a pretty good chance that you've done mileage outside of Dext for this year, for this calendar year to date. And we need to know how many miles you've traveled so far. So what you can do for your first claim and first claim only is you can go ahead and you can just put, right, okay, so far this year, I've traveled 1,000 kilometers, and you can create a claim and then archive it. That way, that cost doesn't go again into your QuickBooks or your Xero, but we then know how many miles you've created, and that will go into that accumulated distance traveled so far in the year. But for this example, we're going to say this is the first time that we've traveled this year in this car. And we're going to say, right, okay, so the date of my first mileage was today. I'm going to say I traveled from Toronto, and we're going to go to London because I believe there's somewhere in Canada which is close to Toronto called London too. And then from here, we're going to go and say, yep, was it a one-way trip or a round trip? And I can say, right, okay, on the way back, it's saying to me to go here. My grandma, she lives in Drayton, so I want to go on there on the way back to see her and make sure she's okay. So I can drag and drop this journey to see, how I see fit. This is exactly the same on the mobile phone, and I'll explain that in a little bit too. So really, really useful. I can put any description in there that I want to flow through into my QuickBooks as just within the description field. So I can say, okay, travel to London to see Rachel. And once I'm happy with that, I can say, have I traveled in these northern territories or not? I can turn that on or off. And then I can see this trip calculation to show how Dext has calculated this cost item before I go ahead and create it. So what you'll see there is that, we've done 451 kilometers at 70p per mile. What you'll see if I was to do that at, over that 5,000 limit, it would say, right, okay, 5,000 have been completed at 70 cents per kilometer, and the remainder has been calculated at 64 cents. Again, if I select that additional territory rate, I can go ahead and claim that additional rate there as well. So we're going to go back and we're going to just do that as normal. And we're happy with how it's calculated that. And we're going to go ahead and create a claim from there. So what that does is effectively create a cost item and jumps this right into there. It's got a picture of the journey that I've taken. It's got details of myself, the car, the date, and how I've gone about that travel. And from here, on the right-hand side, has all my defaulted information, and I can change or add anything else within there. What I can do then is I can publish that into my QuickBooks or Xero as a bill, sat on that purchase ledger as a bill awaiting to be paid. Or what's more likely, if it's the team internally and they're doing mileage claims, they might want to add that to an expense claim throughout the month within there. A couple of other bits to work out on here, which is actually available within the normal Dext, but just as something that might be really relevant when you do mileage. If you incur mileage on behalf of a customer, say for example you're a consultant or you're you work in construction and you're recharging your mileage and your travel costs to your customer. What you can see on the right hand side on every bill that you ever come across within Dext has this phrase customer here, which people usually just ignore because they don't really know what it means, because obviously this is a cost item. Why would we have a customer? But what you can do in here is I can say, right, okay, let's go here. I'm going to say, right, okay, this is relating to Mike's Magic, and I want to click that as mark as rebillable. Then if I was to come into QuickBooks or into Xero, when I created a sales invoice for Mike's Magic, what you'll see on the right-hand side is all of my costs that I've marked as rebillable. So I can remember, so, right, okay, when I was in Dext, I said that I needed to recharge this cost to this customer. I simply just click add, and then it adds it to my sales invoice down here. And I can add in much detail as I want, and then I can make sure that I recharge the cost and I don't leave anything uncharged and lose out on all of that sweet, sweet cash flow. Okay, so that's sort of everything to do with mileage. And I'll just give you a little bit of a sort of an indication of how that looks on the mobile phone. So
Question for you really quickly, Max. I know that for the demo purposes, we're using QBO for that. For everything that you're showing, is that also available in Xero?
Absolutely everything that I'm showing so far is available within Xero as well as QuickBooks. So rebillable expenses is also available within Xero. Mileage is available for both. It's exactly the same.
Awesome, thanks.
So what we can see here on the right-hand side is a picture of our mobile app. So for those of you who are used to using our mobile app, what you can do is just simply make sure the app's closed, update it on your app store. So go into your Apple App Store or your Android App Store or whatever it may be, update the app. And then when you go into the app and there's that big green plus button at the bottom to take a picture, you just click and hold that. Above scan receipt and invoice will then appear the words mileage claim, like you'll see here on the right-hand side. And you can go ahead and create a mileage claim straight from your mobile phone. So does anyone have any questions initially about the world of mileage? Has anything come in? Has anyone got any burning questions about the world of mileage?
So it doesn't look like it yet, but I'll definitely keep my eye on it and let you know for sure.
Amazing. Okay. So we've talked there about, business expenditure. We've talked about, if I was to create this mileage claim, let me jump into here. I could publish this onto my purchase ledger within my QuickBooks solution. But I also want to be able to add this to an employee expense claim. So employee expense claims is something that's definitely underutilized within Dext. It comes free within the cost of your subscription, and people should definitely be using it. So underneath your costing box there, you have employee expense claims. Okay. And within here, you can create expense claims and add documents to them. You can also add documents that come into your costing box, and you can move these into expense claims. So I can say, right, okay, this cost item wasn't paid by the business. It was paid by an employee, and I want to put it on an employee expense claim. So I can go from here and, just click add to expense claim there at the top. And what that'll do is it'll ask me, do I want to add this to an existing claim or to a new claim? So I've got some claims open there for Peter's expenses, and I could just simply add it into there. So jumping into those expense claims and how they look. So what you can do is you can just manually keep on adding documents into an expense claim, like we can see here. So we've got one here, which is Peter's expense claim. And if you wanted to see how this would end up in QuickBooks or Xero, or the attachment would look like this. And the information that would flow through would be just the totals there of that transaction. Within this, you can also click on the items and get sort of a PDF attachment straight away of any of those bills. So all of the paper trail is still there, and it comes in this nice trail here. If you wanted to print it off and do some manual approval signatures, then you could do so as well. but we do have a better way to show you going forward. So expense claims, like I said here, you can do it very, very manually as well, but there is a little bit of an improvement of how you can go about doing that. We have a feature within our expenses called auto expense claims here. And again, definitely an underutilized solution within our Dext platform. So if I go ahead and click manage auto expense claims. So if I was a user within a Dext account, say a standard user, and I didn't have a business card, I never did business expenses, I only ever did expense users. So me at Dext, I don't have a company card, not yet. Rachel won't give me one. And I only ever do personal expenses. So every time I send something to our internal Dext account, it just needs to get added to my expense claim. So I can say, right, okay, for Max there, every time Max sends a receipt in, add it to an expense claim. Don't put it in my costing box and muddle it with all of the transactions that are already in there. And what I can say is we can do this on a regular basis to automate the creation of these expense claims. So I can say at the end of every month, on a monthly basis for Max, create an expense claim. So for example, today we're in November. If I was to submit a receipt on my mobile phone or through the email in, and I would send it to Dext, it would get added to my November expenses. Come next week when I'm in December and I take a picture then, that will then get added to my December expense claim. And that'll keep accumulating until the end of December. And it will go like that. And it will automate the pre-population of those expense claims. Okay. Really, really useful. So you don't have to muddle all of your costing box and all of your expenses together, and everything flows in lovely there for you. What I would say is that it's often that potentially you're a business owner or you have a company card, and sometimes use a company card and sometimes use the personal card. And you're thinking, right, well, that wouldn't work for me, because the thing is, if I send in an item that I've paid for on a business card, that's going to get added to an employee expense claim. And that's not where it should be. It needs to go on the purchase ledger as it was paid for by the company. So what you can do is, if you go into users, there is a little bit of a workaround here. And a lot of people, again, don't know this exists within Dext, but my email is max.whiteley@dext.com. But the fact I can, after my surname there, I just put plus, and then I can put any word, whatever I like, whether that's expense or admin or something like that. And it allows me to create another user within Dext. So I can say here, max.whiteley plus expenses is another user, and I can set that user up for auto expense claim. So when I'm logged into that user on the mobile phone and I take a picture, then it automatically goes to my expense claims. However, when I'm logged in as my normal user, then it goes into my costing box. And for those of you who are aware, when you have two users on the mobile phone, you can simply just drag it. You can simply hit a drop down and select between the two, and you can move between the two very, very easily within there. So there is a little bit of a workaround there. And I know that's sort of a little bit more complicated than just the standard way. But if you wanted to use auto expense claims and you do have business and personal expenses, then you can have this little workaround by just having a little bit of a plus email within there. Okay. Perfect. So, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, you can print off these invoices, do that wet approval, send them to, around the office till the right person has approved your purchase, and then it goes into the system and off it goes, and you get your expenses paid back 3 years later. We can speed up that process and make the security a little bit stronger in there. So the first thing I wanted to show you, just because it will come into context later on down the line, is a little bit about our sort of user rights and what a certain person can and can't do within the solution. So within our user details here, every user has this box of manager related to them. So you can associate a manager with a person. So for me, my manager is Rory, and they've gone ahead and I've selected him as my manager within there. That will come into context very, very soon. And then also within our user privileges, we have 3 users, or your clients will have 3 users when they're adding their staff into the solution. The first one is the business admin. This user can do absolutely everything. They can see everyone's documents. They can approve for people. They can override things, and they have full control of their Dext account. They can manage their subscription, and they can manage the business-wide settings. You have a user admin who can, again, see and view everyone's documents. They can approve on other people's behalves. They are still an admin. However, they don't have the capability to manage the subscription or change the business-wide settings. Okay. And then for most of your clients, if I'm being totally truthful, if you are doing the bookkeeping for them, they should probably be a standard user. So if they're an employee within the firm or they're just someone within the team, they should just be a standard user. And likelihood is they should be able to create expense claims within there. So, I can submit and view only my own information. I can change only my own settings, but I can create an expense claim on, for myself because I am a member of the team and I want to create my own expense claims if and when suitable for me. And then down at the bottom, I have my publishing permissions. So for me, as a standard user, I don't want them to be publishing to the accounting software because they always get the categories wrong or they always don't claim the right tax back. We're just going to leave my staff there as sort of they don't have the ability to do so within there. Okay, so we've done the settings, I've applied a manager, and then we're going to have a little look now into our approvals. Okay, within our costing box there, what you'll see is we now have an approvals box within there, and this is where this is where I go to look at what I need to approve. But how do we set up our approval flow? Okay, we're going to jump into business settings in the bottom left-hand corner. Within here, we have a little tick, and that is for approvals. So we've got two sections here, approvals for our cost items and approvals for our employee expenses within there. What you can do is you can create a workflow from the right-hand side, or I can go ahead and look at my test one that I've created here. So I've got a workflow here. I'm going to call this, let's call this the Max's Entertaining Workflow. And the description of this is to keep an eye on employees going wild on Christmas parties. So we can go from there. And
employees never go wild on Christmas parties, do they? What?
Well, you'd think not in the accounting industry, but I have seen plenty of accountants going completely mental when it comes to
I'm sure.
festive period. But including myself. And then we're going to apply these approvals to the following situation. So we can say, when our document fits this criteria, so we're going to say every document that we ever see, but we can say, only apply this to invoices, expenses, mileage. And so every time we see entertaining, no matter who the supplier is, or class and locations, or tracking categories if you're using Xero, then I want you to apply this approval flow to that person, or to that cost item, should I say. And at the bottom, we can say, what do we want to do with that cost item? So I can say, right, if an entertaining invoice comes into my Dext, I don't want someone to be able to publish it straight into the accounting software. I want Robin, should I say? I want Robin to always approve this. If someone goes even wilder, I want Rory to step in. So I can say, Rory, when the amount gets over £1,000, then bring Rory in. And we can do this for 5 steps along that approval process. And then down here, what you can do is you can switch the workflow on or off. So you can create a workflow and turn it off just so the settings are saved for later if you wanted to go back and turn that on. And then we have this auto publish once approved. And everyone's always scared of auto publish, which I have my own opinions on. But this doesn't necessarily mean the same auto publish as what you're used to. This means that once it's gone through the approval flow and Rory has done the final approval and said, yes, we're good to go, then that will then get published into your accounting software. If that is not turned on, once Rory has approved it, it will then come back to me, Max, as the bookkeeper, and then I will have the power to publish that into the accounting software. Okay. So how does that look in a sort of practical functionality within there? Let's jump back into my costing box. So what you'll see is a lot of the invoices have publish here, but this one here that goes to entertaining has request approval instead of having the ability to publish it. So it's not going to let me publish it until I've got the necessary approval to get this through the door. Perfect. So we can say that request approval, and then it will start to go along and get passed along that approval flow. And it won't go to Rory until Robin's done it. So it has to go past the first person first and then on to the second person. What you'll see here is we have, as I am an admin, I can see everyone's approvals within here. And I can see here we've got one item awaiting approval. And we can say, right, okay, let's have a little look at this. How dare they bought an orange juice and iced vanilla latte? I don't want to approve this into the accounting software. I want to reject this and say, No to iced lattes. And I can go ahead and click reject within there. What you'll see then is when we come back into the inbox, we can see some of these items that are rejected, and there's a little warning to why that has been rejected. I can jump into this invoice here, and it's got a bit of an error message there, so I can then, as a bookkeeper, revisit how I want to do this, and I might just go and have to pay for this invoice myself personally, or whatever that may be. But we also have the history within here, and we have all of the audit trail of what's gone on with that approval, who it's been passed to, and what's been said within there as well. So you have the full audit trail there. And we are working at bringing that audit trail directly into your QuickBooks or Xero as well, in a later iteration of this. But that is a little bit around the approvals within there.
Awesome. Could you just stay here for just a quick second? We've got a question from Katie asking about a reject button. And so I didn't see that, like where you've got the request approval. If you are okay. So if you are an approver, how do you reject it?
Okay, so that was just sort of how I showed you this. So if I went to that one and we'll request that one as approval. Then as the approver, we'll get a notification saying you've got something to approve.
Yeah.
They will jump into this box within their inbox where it says, to approve or reject. They will click into it and they can say, right, okay, approve or reject here.
Got it. Okay, so if you go to the previous page, I think it's that screenshot. So here it's a quick link to approve, but not a quick link to reject. Because if you're rejecting, you probably want to give a reason for that. And so click into okay, got it. Awesome.
Correct. Perfect. So let's pretend that Rachel is approving all my receipts and invoices during the festive period, and I've gone completely wild and I've sent Rachel 10 things to approve within the space of half an hour, and Rachel's got 10 separate emails within there, and it's quite overpowering. So I can help with that a little bit. So within the user settings for you as an approver, you can come into here and we have this approval email notifications at the bottom. So I can say, right, okay, for my approval emails, I can either say instantly if I want to get an instant notification of when something has been approved, or I can group these up to an hour. So I can say, right, Rachel can get an email and say, Max has just sent you 10 items over the last hour to approve, as opposed to getting 10 separate emails for them as well. So just to make it a little more bearable for you as the approver. Same for your rejected items and your edited items. You can group those notifications together. Okay. So that is the cost approvals. And then we want to have a little look at those the employee expense approvals there as well. So we're going to jump into I've jumped out of my client. That's not very helpful. Let me jump back in. So again, within my business settings, we have the approval section, which we're going to jump back into. We're going to have a look at expense claims here. And what you can see is we have an approval flow within here that we've already created. And what you'll know is if it's the first time you've ever used this, Dext Employee Expenses did used to have an approval process, but we've tried to improve it and make it a little bit more easy to use as such. What you'll see at the top here is you can turn on the new approval process or go back to the old approval process. If you do turn on the new approval process, start to use it, create some templates, but don't quite like it, you can turn it off at your choice. The power is in your hands. And as soon as you turn it back on, everything will still be there. Nothing will be lost as such. Okay. So we've turned on the new approval process and I've set up an approval flow within here. So this is my expenses approval workflow for the Dext employees to follow when they are doing their expenses. And we're going to apply this to all expense claims. And I can say down here, at the first port of call, I want the approver to be one of these people. Okay. But my first thought process was, well, not all of my team will have the same manager. So how does it differentiate between these? If I don't click one of these people, it defaults just to manager. And when I showed you a little bit earlier within our settings or our user settings where you could assign a manager to a user, it'll pick that user's manager when it comes to this approval flow. So you can say, right, okay, first of all, I want their manager to always approve it no matter what the amount. And then after that, I want it to go to our finance team and they're going to approve it for them. Or the finance team can only ever approve it when it's over £100 or £200. I mean, it's a bit more of a material amount there as well. So you can get really sort of techie with this. You can have just your manager approve it. You can have just the finance team approve it, or a combination of the two. And again, we can switch that workflow on. We can switch that workflow off. And we can also auto-publish those transactions once the final approver has gone in and looked at those documents within there. Okay. Any questions so far on the approval workflows or employee expenses?
No, I think we're good to go for that one as well. Now, a question did come up yesterday, which I think is helpful, especially for us bookkeepers who can actually make up part of the approval process for our clients' expenses and costs. Is that as a bookkeeper, I can, of course, see all of this from a client perspective, but I'm not part of the workflow, right? Native, like as that functionality was built out, it's really kind of reserved for our client and their team to be managing that workflow. So if I, as a bookkeeper, have a role within that workflow, I would then need to be added as a user in that client. Is that correct?
Exactly that. So if you as the bookkeeper play a part in your client's approval workflow, you'll need to be added as a user within their practice. So you'll come into here and you'll add a user. You can do one of two things here. If you were to add a user that was the same email address as the user that you have within your practice account, it'll probably reject it back and say this email already exists within another practice. However, what you can do is you can go ahead and do that Max Whiteley plus the client's name at dext.com, and you can create effectively like a fake email address there that will still receive notifications of any errors. And you can go ahead there and set up that user within the account and then use that user within the approval flow. And you, as the bookkeeper, can play a part then within that business and that approval flow.
Yeah, those aliases can really come in handy for that kind of some of these workarounds where you need to be doing more than one thing. And actually, from a maintenance perspective, it's like because of the way that aliases work, it all just goes into all of your notifications would just arrive in your regular email and everything anyway. So it's not like you now have all of these different accounts to be checking. Like that's not how the aliases work, right? It streamlines it on your side, but still allows you that differentiation on the Dext side.
Exactly. So every email still goes to that max.wiley, ignoring that plus bit dext.com.
Right.
Perfect.
Wonderful.
Another thing that we had, Rachel, yesterday was people were asking, when they're creating that mileage cost item, and they only want to do one document that says mileage for November and has all of those transactions within.
Yeah, right. Yes.
So one thing you can do within that is, so say for example, I have this mileage claim within here, and I could simply just add this to an expense claim, call it a new expense claim, and say, right, this is for me. The end date is the end of November, and I'm going to call this November
Mileage. Yeah.
Oh, and our spelling's not great on that, but let's keep going. And what you'll see is when I go to my expense claims within there, all of my mileage just get added line by line by line. And then when it gets to the end of November, I can just publish that as one document into QuickBooks or Xero that has all of my mileage that I've traveled. If you don't want to have all of those singular data within
yeah,
there.
That works perfectly.
I also missed something a little bit earlier. Is within our costing box here, we also have a mileage box now, which is where you can review and compare all of your mileage. So I can go into here and say, right, okay, let me have a little look at all of the mileage that Max has done during the year. And we can have a look at everything through there and so on and so on and so on. Okay. So that's a new feature within there as well.
Wonderful. So the other place where it talks about mileage is for the setup of it and actually creating those, but then this is where you would manage those costs that have been, indicated as mileage expenses. Wonderful.
Yeah, exactly that. The settings, mileage, that's where we set it up. And then we have the inbox here where your cost items can come to, but once you've published them in, or whether you've not published them at all. So for example, if you just archived a mileage claim, they will still sit here within your mileage sort of. This is like an archive, particularly just for your mileage claims. So you can, have a closer eye on stuff within there as well.
Wonderful. Awesome. What else we got for us, Max?
What else have I got for you? Putting me on the spot a little bit there, Rachel. I have definitely got. I could talk all day about the world of Dext, and I will actually, because we have probably got a couple of minutes to ping a few things over. So I'll go into a few things, and I'll go off the cuff and go over a few a couple of features that I think are definitely underutilized within Dext as a software. One thing for me is duplicates, and this is something that I hear all the time. And when people are managing expenses, they don't know how, they've sent something to Dext and it's gone into this sort of void or black hole, if you will. They don't know where it's gone and they can't see it. It's not in the costing box. It's not in their archive. And actually, where it used to be, or where it should be, or where is when you go to your archive. If you go to your submission history within here, so not your archive, into your submission history, then you can see what's happened to every single document that's ever been sent to Dext. And when you buy Dext out of the box, what happens is that we have decided what we think your settings should be. And me and Rachel are fighting for this to be changed within Dext. But
having that bookkeeper mind makes a difference to how you use some of these settings and set them up, right?
Exactly. So duplicate items within Dext, because we want to save you, or the initial process of Dext to save you guys as much time as possible and your clients as much time as possible. We've always set this to automatic. So every Dext account has automatic as the default, which means that when an item goes into Dext, if we think it's a duplicate, we will get rid of it for you and keep it in that submission history, but you won't be able to see it anywhere else, which can be quite confusing sometimes. And we're basing that duplication off, multiple factors, date, the invoice number, things like that. But me and Rachel both prefer this to review setting here. So what you can do here is you can go to review, and I'll show you the difference of what happens now. So instead of it just getting disregarded out of your inbox, what it does now is it's going to say to review. So it's not going to let me publish it, and it's going to say, we think this is a duplicate item. Please review it before you publish it. I can click into here and say, right, okay, the actual invoice has gone in. Someone's taken a picture of that invoice as well. I know that's exactly the same invoice. So I can say, yes, this is the same purchase. And I have the ability then to delete one of these images or attach them together. So it might be the example where I've seen where you have a train ticket that's like a booking confirmation and the physical train ticket itself. And you might as well keep them both. So you say, yes, this is the same purchase, but attach them together. So we have that completeness of records. Or alternatively say, no, you've got it wrong, Dext. It's a completely different purchase. And these two items will then go into your inbox as two separate items within there. Just helps you keep a track on that. And, it's quite useful if you do have clients who maybe they work in the farming industry or they work in the construction industry where, you might have people using the same invoice templates month on month and have the same invoice number every single month, even though it is a new invoice. And one thing you can do as well with that is within your suppliers, what we'll see is we can say, right, okay, we've got a supplier here, ABC Exports. And this is just that, it's that one-off builder. They use the same invoice template every single month. And Dext keeps picking it up as a duplicate, but it isn't a duplicate. It's just poor record keeping from this supplier. So what I can say here is within that supplier rule, we have duplicate cost items. And I can say, follow the system settings, which are now at to review. Or I can say, just for this supplier, turn it off. I don't want you to ever try and look for duplicates, just this supplier. And so you can override those wider settings there within Dext. Okay. So that is duplicates. I definitely think is overlooked within the solution. Just trying to think if there's anything else that I think is definitely worth. I've showed you the rebuild some of your cost to your customers.
Yep.
Full search, we definitely have this. This is sort of being released this year. And what you'll see is within QuickBooks or within Xero, you can search by supplier name, you can search by amount, and that's really it. So if clients do give you any queries, sometimes it's hard to find stuff. So they may say, right, I bought a microwave. And you're like, well, who did you buy it from? How much was it? I don't know, can't remember. I bought a microwave. It needs to get added to my asset register. I'll say, all right, okay. So if you come into Dext, you can literally just go, right, okay, search microwave. And it'll pick it up and it says, right, that little purple circle saying we found that in this document. You can jump into here and you can see there that microwave is there in the middle and it's found that. So if you're answering queries or doing any tax investigations, it's a really quick way to go about some of that stuff. Perfect. How much time we got, Rachel? Do we want me to?
Wonderful. I actually think we're good on time. So we'll open it up to questions. If any of you have any questions, we would love to dig in there. But otherwise, we could probably just go ahead, get back to our deck. And we would love, if you would like to find out more about Dext and how it can save you time and energy as well as help you run your practice, then feel free to get a hold of us. We also have a couple of other webinars that are coming up. One of our Dext partners is doing a webinar on profitability on December 4th. And then we also have a tax tech roundup happening on December 10th. So check your chat box where you can click on some of those links to register for those webinars coming up as well. The Tax Tech Roundup is featuring Tax Cycle as the tax partner, which is Canada only. But the same principles that we'll be demonstrating there, you could use with any other US tax software for that as well. Thank you so much for Katie for including a set of the slides, which is great for you to look through as well. And if you would like to connect to either Max or myself, just hold your camera up to the QR code to connect with us on LinkedIn. Thank you, Max, so much for joining and for giving us all of these fantastic tips. Thanks all of you for joining as well from Canada, the US, and the Philippines. So wonderful to get a good mix. Happy to stick around for a minute or two to ask additional questions. Josiane, for example, is asking about sending us the recording. Dave, if you can just help us out with the answer to that. I believe it's yes, but just want to make sure that I've got the right question on that as well. Thank you all for attending. I hope you got a few little nuggets out of this with Dext and how you can make this expense season go a little smoother. Thank you so much. And yes, we'll be sending out the recording. Take care. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you all.